Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. The headlines. A major win for Philippine business. Ayala Corporation earns Time Magazine's highest ranking for a local firm for a third year in a row. What sets them apart? Illegal POGO operations exposed. More than 400 arrested in a raid on an underground gaming hub in Parañaque despite last year's ban. In a rare move, Delta Airlines offers $30,000 to each passenger of the flight that flipped upside down in a terrifying crash landing in Toronto. What's behind this unusual payout? These stories and more coming up. First, let's take a look at how financial markets performed overnight. U.S. stocks ended lower Thursday as tariff concerns and a weak outlook from Walmart weighed on investor sentiment. Walmart issued a disappointing sales and profit forecast for the current fiscal year, missing analyst expectations and adding to market caution. Meanwhile, gold prices surged to a record high, signaling a flight to safety as investors navigate growing economic uncertainties.
What we're looking at today is many of the high momentum, some of the leading stocks in the market that have been outperforming for weeks, if not months, are starting to pull back. They are overbought technically.
Taking a look at Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average lower by 1%, S&P 500 lower by 0.4%, and the Nasdaq Composite down by 0.5%. Elsewhere in the world, the UK's FTSE lower by 0.6%, Germany's DAX down by 0.5%, and France's CAC 40 higher by 0.2%. Ayala Corporation ranks 46th out of 500 firms on Time Magazine's Best Companies of 2025 in the Asia Pacific, the highest-ranked Filipino company for a third year in a row. Led by Bilyonaryo Jaime Zobel de Ayala, or Jazza, the conglomerate's recognition reflects the growing global competitiveness of Philippine companies as more local firms gain visibility on the international stage. In a Facebook post, Jazza expresses gratitude for the recognition, crediting their partners, stakeholders, and employees for their role in the company's success. Ayala isn't alone. 28 other Filipino companies made that list, including San Miguel Corporation at 85, Security Bank at 88, and SM Investments at 109. The strong showing of Philippine corporations in the rankings showcases the country's business strength, innovation, and regional influence, helping attract more investors and trade opportunities for the local economy. After more than a decade of negotiations, the Marcos administration finalizes a landmark agreement with indigenous peoples, ensuring that they receive their rightful share of royalties from mining operations in their ancestral lands. This deal marks a major step in recognizing indigenous rights and resource sharing in one of the Philippines' most controversial industries. With the mining sector contributing billions to the economy, the agreement could impact both indigenous communities and investors. Sujin Kim reports.
The Philippines is one of the world's richest countries in mineral resources, with almost 200 mining sites. From 2013 to 2022, over 100 million pesos in royalties have been distributed to indigenous communities. But there are strong concerns that this may not reflect the true amount owed, due to a lack of data transparency and monitoring. Under the newly signed Memorandum of Understanding, the government will ensure that millions from mining operations go directly to the rightful beneficiaries, not just to the interests of big corporations.
The government continues to refine the mining fiscal regime, aiming to create a system that balances the interests of all stakeholders while ensuring that resource revenues contribute to national and local development.
For decades, extractive industries have played a critical role in our national economy, contributing to government revenues and economic growth. However, we also recognize the social, environmental, and economic challenges that these industries pose.
While mining provides jobs and revenues for the government, its impact on the environment and indigenous communities runs deep.
The extraction of minerals, oil, gas, and coal takes place in specific areas, often within ancestral domains. While these activities generate revenues, such as royalties and taxes, there remain challenges in tracking how these funds are allocated and utilized. Strengthening data sharing and monitoring mechanisms will help ensure that indigenous communities have better access to information.
The extractive industries, which draw heavily on the resources within our ancestral domains, have often operated without full regard for the rightful claims of these communities, have left many indigenous peoples with little recourse and insufficient information about the payments made by extractive companies for the use of their lands.
With the stricter data sharing system, the government can now verify whether mining companies' declared payments match what indigenous communities actually receive. Experts say this new transparency system will boost foreign investor confidence as it enhances the Philippines' image as a responsible mining destination.
We expect for it to give confidence to our foreign investors. Because when foreign investors, when they go into a country, they look also at the governance structures. They're confident that there is proper reporting from the part of government, industry, and civil society.
For investors looking at the Philippines, Philippines is out there. We're ready, for more mining investment in the country. This is definitely a game changer, a positive step, to investing and to welcoming foreign investment in the country.
Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla gives local officials in Malay, Aklan a 2-week deadline to lower visitor and municipal fees for Boracay or temporarily halt collections to keep tourism costs in check. Remulla met with local officials on Monday alongside Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco to discuss making Boracay more accessible to visitors amid rising concerns over tourism affordability. Right now, tourists pay 150 pesos in terminal fees and another 150 pesos for environmental fees for domestic travelers, while foreign visitors, pay double. Despite these fees, Boracay remains a top tourist destination. Its main white beach was recently named among Asia's best of the best in TripAdvisor's 2025 Travel Choice Awards. With tourism as a major economic driver, finding the right balance between revenue generation and affordability will be key to keeping Boracay competitive, especially as other destinations in the region intensify their efforts to attract tourists. Construction slowed in December as fewer buildings were approved, with building permits dropping nearly 11% to just over 10,000. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, shows this is a decline from over 12,000 permits recorded in December of 2023. However, construction activity picked up in November, with approved permits climbing 9.3% to over 13,000 projects. The slowdown was driven by a nearly 16% drop in residential construction, with housing projects falling to just over 6,000, accounting for 62% of the total approvals. The data signals a cooling real estate sector over the short term. In response, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas initiated an easing cycle in August of 2024, cutting the policy rate by 25 basis points in August, October, and in December, bringing it down to 5.75%. These measures aim to stimulate economic activity and revitalize the broader economy. The Philippine automotive industry is gearing up for a strong 2025, driven by new model launches and increasing consumer demand, signaling a boost for manufacturers, dealers, and related sectors. With sales rebounding and more brands introducing electric and hybrid vehicles, the industry expects sustained growth supported by government incentives and improved financing options. Our mobility correspondent G. Baroga has the details.
The Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines, Inc., or CAMPI, is setting its sights on 500,000 car sales this year, a 7% increase from the 467,252 units sold in 2024. Campi President Romel Gutierrez is optimistic, believing fresh model releases will keep buyers interested and sustain momentum. And the year has started on the right foot, with sales in January rising by 10% compared to the same period last year. Light trucks and utility vehicles led the charge, posting a 17% year-on-year sales jump, more than offsetting an 8% dip in passenger car sales. For the first time, Campi included new energy vehicles or NEVs in its report, highlighting a shift in consumer preferences. Dealers sold 1,600 NEVs in January, with hybrids making up the bulk of sales as more buyers explore eco-friendly options. Toyota of the Bilyonaryo T family continues to lead the pack. Other brands are also making moves, hoping to capture a bigger slice of the market. The government is currently drawing up a new incentive program for vehicle makers to crank up their sales. Based on economic czar Frederick Goss' proposal under RACE, or the Revitalizing the Automotive Industry for Competitiveness Enhancement Program, vehicle makers can get as much as 3 billion pesos in perks for every model whose sales exceed 100,000. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back. Let's take a look at how bourses in Asia are faring in early trade. Right now, I'm seeing a mixed picture. Japan's Nikkei 225 is flat with an upward bias, up by a little under 0.1%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index sharply higher, up by 1.61%. Shanghai's index and Singapore's Straits Times Index are going the other way, down by 0.3% and down by 0.2% respectively. Now here at home, let's take a look at the Philippine Stock Exchange Index as of 10:15 this morning. The main gauge is in the green, higher by 0.6% to 6,100. The All Shares Index up as well, up by 0.1% to 3674. Now yesterday, the Philippine share slid as investors reacted to the latest U.S. Federal Reserve meeting's minutes, which suggested that a rate cut may not happen anytime soon. And this dampens sentiment across emerging markets, including the Philippines, because higher U.S. interest rates make risky assets like ours less attractive, driving capital flows away from equities towards safer havens like U.S. Treasuries and gold. Now, taking a look at the PSE index again, we're up by 0.6%, a divergence from yesterday's 0.9% loss. Holding firms, industrial services, mining and oil and property counters are all in the green, whereas the financial sector is flat with a downward bias. Now, at the foreign exchange market, let's take a look at the peso. The peso opened at 58.90 against its previous close of 57.94. So weaker there for the peso. Now onto some earnings news. Metro Bank posts a record-breaking year with net income rising nearly 14%, 48.14 billion pesos in 2024. A strong showing amid a changing interest rate environment. The bank's financial statement shows a sharp increase from 42.24 billion pesos in 2023, pushing its return on average equity to over 13% and return on average assets to 1.45%. Metro Bank attributes the growth to a 15.66% expansion in interest income, adding 24 billion pesos to its revenues. This strong performance reflects resilient loan demand and robust asset quality, with other banks expected to report similar gains as they benefit from higher yields. Earnings season continues with investors watching how Philippine banks navigate inflation risks, interest rate shifts, and consumer spending trends. On another front, the Department of Agriculture widens its net of import bans by stopping shipments from 4 more U.S. states. In a memorandum issued by the DA, Illinois, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin are now covered by the import ban due to recent avian flu outbreaks there. Similar bans were imposed earlier this year from Maryland, Missouri, South Dakota, and New Zealand. On another front, despite the POGO ban, illegal operations continue. Authorities arrest over 400 individuals in a raid on an unauthorized gaming hub in Parañaque City. Among those taken into custody were over 100 Chinese nationals, 3 Vietnamese, and other foreigners. Investigators confirm the facility operated as an investment and sports betting scam, highlighting the persistence of unlicensed gaming networks despite the ban. With the industry shut down, illegal operators have gone underground, posing a challenge for authorities and impacting legitimate business interests. How the government handles these cases will shape regulatory credibility, influence foreign investor confidence, and affect the future of the gaming sector. Now, political uncertainty looms as the Senate prepares for a potential impeachment trial. Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel calls for an all-senators caucus to gauge their stance on the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte. With the trial expected to dominate the political agenda, businesses and investors are watching closely as prolonged uncertainty could affect policy continuity, market sentiment, and foreign investor confidence. Anna T. has the details.
The Senate can proceed with the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte without a special session from the President. That's according to Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel. He calls for a caucus to clarify the position of all senators. He says as long as there's a quorum, the body can convene as an impeachment court.
Obligasyon ito ng Senado. Tapos sasabihin namin na hindi namin magampanan ang aming obligasyon kasi hawak ng isang tao yung bola. Kailangan siya magtawag ng special session.
The articles of impeachment were transmitted to the Senate in February. But if it's only included in the order of business by June, 4 months will have passed. Pimentel thinks that's too long for such a crucial issue. He believes the majority has other priorities.
Baka nagkukonsulta nga siya, but baka nga the majority is backing up his timetable.
Exactly my point.
That's why I am presenting an alternative point of view.
Exactly my point, sir.
Ito ang tamang point of view.
He says support for his position is growing in the Senate. 2 other senators, including Risa Ontiveros, now agree with him.
Dahan-dahan, nagiging 3 na kami. So pagdating na niya sa 10, sa 12, that should be sufficient pressure on the Senate President already.
He insists the campaign season should not interfere with Senate duties.
Isang tabi ang kampanya. Priority ang impeachment.
Isn't that a very big ask of your colleagues?
That's part of the job description.
He says the Senate can start to convene as early as March.
Prepared naman si SP na, pina-review na niya rules. So madali naman yung pagka the court is now in session, mag-oath kami, we reaffirm the existing rules para lang wala ng issue na kung valid siya o hindi. Kung may proposed amendments, kilusan na namin.
Pimentel now plans to formally request a caucus with Senate President Cheese Escudero. He adds he's ready to speak with SP Cheese if he sees him at the Senate. But he won't be reaching out to other senators to avoid any impression that he's trying to sway the majority. Still, he's confident. Momentum is building and pressure on the Senate is only growing. Hannah T., Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Former Senate President Franklin Drilon urges President Marcos to call a special session allowing the Senate, sitting as an impeachment court, to proceed with the trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. In an interview with Agenda, Drilon stressed that a special session would help streamline the impeachment process and address legal questions before the next Congress takes over. He warns that without timely action, the impeachment proceedings could spill over into a new legislative term, raising risks of a potential constitutional crisis.
Wala pong kapangyarihan si Senate President Cheese na ituloy o hindi ituloy ang impeachment trial dahil po yan ay nasa kamay ng ating Pangulong Marcos, siya po ang may kapangyarihang tumawag ng special session para mabuo yung impeachment court.
With political stability and focus, business leaders and investors are watching closely for any impact on policy decisions and governance continuity. On another front, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his meeting with U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg restored hope for a possible agreement with Washington as diplomatic talks to end the war with Russia gain momentum. Zelensky also spoke with French President Emmanuel Macron to discuss security guarantees for Ukraine, with Europe taking a crucial role in the latest peace initiatives. Macron is scheduled to meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington on Monday, as Trump pushes for a quick agreement to end the conflict. But the exclusion of Ukraine and European allies from initial talks with Russia has raised concerns among Western diplomats, with questions about what a U.S. brokered deal could mean for the region. Any shift in U.S. policy on the war could have far-reaching effects impacting global markets, energy prices, and Europe's defense strategy. In the U.S., Delta Airlines is offering $30,000, to each passenger of the flight, now that's in North America, that flipped upside down while crash landing in Toronto Airport earlier this week. A Delta spokesman clarifies that the compensation has no strings attached and does not affect passengers' legal rights if they pursue further action. Delta confirms 21 passengers were injured in the incident. Canada's Transportation Safety Board and the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration have launched a joint investigation into what went wrong. The crash sparks concerns over airline safety protocols and liability, raising questions on passenger protection, insurance claims, and the wider impact on the aviation industry. Before we go, Apple unveils its most affordable iPhone 16 yet, promising flagship performance at a lower price. The iPhone 16e is built for Apple Intelligence and runs on the latest A18 chip for faster performance. It features a 48-megapixel Fusion camera and comes in black and white matte finishes for that sleek look. Prices start at $599 or around 37,000 pesos, making it $200 cheaper than the base iPhone 16 model. Pre-orders in the U.S. kick off on February 21st, with tech enthusiasts already buzzing about a more accessible way to experience Apple's latest innovations. A powerful device at a friendlier price, proof that cutting-edge tech doesn't have to break the bank. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo news channel, always on top.